Apparently, Captain America Brave New World, the first film featuring Falcon Cap as a protagonist in the Captain America role, destined to fail. This thing's going to bomb, but Disney and Marvel Studios cannot give up on it. They think it's a much bigger movie than it's supposed to be. It's been a trouble production, depending on who you want to believe. It's been 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 rounds of reshoots. One thing is for certain, nothing has gone according to plan. I think this has been delayed 4 times, and they'll blame it on the writer's strikes and all that kind of stuff, even though the film was done, had basically wrapped up filming by the time the writer's strikes even happened. But we blame everything on that kind of stuff. And it was probably COVID's fault as well, that this thing has not gone very smoothly. They've all but cut out, apparently, the Serpent Society out of the movie. I guess during the test screenings, the chemistry between Sam Wilson and his love interest was not good or non-existent. And it didn't go well. The action scenes were underwhelming, and people had an enormous turnoff or aversion to the political undertones and all that kind of stuff, because you got to get the message into the movie. Because according to Marvel Studios and Disney, apparently Falcon Cap is going to be the next Black Panther, or has the potential to be Black Panther, even though it's ridiculous. It's a character replacing another character that was already established. Like, get out of here trying to compare that to Black Panther, or even thinking that it could be the cultural phenomenon that Black Panther was and how important that was. Not just to mention like the circumstances around the two. When Black Panther came out, the MCU was as hot as could be. When Black Panther debuted in Civil War, was a huge part, obviously going through into the end of Endgame when he shows up and all that stuff at the end with the little these things from Doctor Strange and Wong and all that. Great moment. I still get chills up my spine thinking about that when seeing Steve Rogers. He's beat to a pulp. He's got his hammer. And all of a sudden, on your right, great moment for Falcon. Never should become Falcon Cap. If you watched the MCU, it was clear as day that they were moving right towards the Bucky Barnes Winter Soldier redemption arc with him as Captain America. Not that that would ever be like a really great replacement for Steve Rogers. There's no replacement for Steve Rogers. But at least that was a story that was kind of cool. Nobody really made Falcon Cap work in comic books except for Rick Remender there for a short bit. But otherwise, they always mess up his voice. They turn him into like Falcon Barack Obama. He became a completely different character, completely unlikable and off-putting, and it just failed. It's failed every single time they try to make Sam Wilson Captain America, but they can't give up on it because he's the next Black Panther. Sam Wilson is back in action this week in Atlanta, where Captain America Brave New World began a round of additional photography with a new actor now in the cast, Giancarlo Esposito, who for a few weeks had hinted at his involvement in a Marvel Studios project, is officially on the call sheet in an undisclosed but sources say villainous role. The shoot will run 22 days, according to insiders. So there we go. That is a new name, Giancarlo Esposito. Really good actor. Certainly the most fame he got, I guess, was from Breaking Bad, where he's considered one of the best villains, I believe, of all times in the history of television. I also remember being in like NYPD Blue in a couple episodes. Always liked it. He's a good actor. And we know that Giancarlo Esposito has been stumping to play Professor X, Charles Xavier, in the X-Men reboot that's going on at the MCU. I would say this all but confirms that's not going to happen, because I imagine Professor X is not going to be one of the main villains for Captain America Brave New World. He will likely be doing something else. Will it be related to the Serpent Society? I don't think so, because it sounds like it's been basically cut out. It's not really going to play a feature part of the Captain America movie. So we shall see. At least they went out there and got a good actor. They're like, hey, this needs more gravitas. This needs something a little bit more menacing. I say you go out there and get Giancarlo Esposito. You're probably headed in the right direction, because he's got chops. He's got some gravitas to him. He's got that presence on screen, and he certainly can come across as a very dangerous, villainous man. So that's probably a smart move. But once again, they are in reshoots, which have been, they are the norm in Hollywood. But it seems like they've been the bane of Marvel Studios for several years now, where they just can't get the movie right out the gate. They just have to work on it, and that to finagle and finesse and finagle and send it to a test screening and try and work it out. And nothing works out in the end. It just kind of all blows up in their faces. But it was noted, despite this set of reshoots, that the budget should come in under the Marvels, which was like over $400 million. So I would hope so. I would hope that the budget wouldn't get up near $500 million for a freaking Falcon Cap movie. Oh my goodness. Why are they even making this thing? Even though it managed to wrap up principal photography before the strikes, Brave New World's post-production was hampered and delayed. As the actors' strike ended in November, Marvel moved Brave New World's release date from July 26, 2024 to February 14, 2025, which gave execs time to hone in on what they needed to get out of the reshoots and take in feedback from test screenings. Matthew Orton, who previously worked on Marvel's Moon Knight, was hired to work on the new pages in December, riding over the winter. And this is where we get to the point where the new details aren't quite as exciting as adding Giancarlo Esposito to the cast. Oh, so we're going to bring in another writer who didn't do the initial script because it wasn't good enough. And we're not going to go and get the Russo brothers or somebody that's actually been proven on Captain America or even in the MCU. We're going to get the guy that did Moon Knight, the show that wasn't as bad as Secret Invasion, the show that wasn't as bad as Echo, but wasn't as good as Loki, which wasn't a good show either. They just don't have access to talent anymore. For some reason, they just trust the worst writers in the world these days. And, you know, that's where you're going in there. You're like, oh, let's go bring in the Moon Knight guy to spice up the Captain America movie. Thank God it wasn't the dudes that were in charge of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I guess that's the big thing coming out of this. At least it wasn't that. But it doesn't sound good. None of this sounds promising other than Giancarlo Esposito. This is going to be an absolute shit show because the audience has told Marvel Studios, where they've gone wrong. You've deviated too far off the characters. You've deviated too far off the core principles of the universe and all that kind of stuff. And until you get back, we're not going to accept it. You can say, well, Sam Wilson as Captain America has been cated for a while. We've had Falcon Cap for a while. But this is a case where going with the source material is actually a bad thing because this is source material that's been roundly rejected time and time and time again from the comic book reading audience. They've already been your guinea pigs and they said, you know what? That doesn't work for me. That's not very good. That's not where I want to see the character of Sam Wilson go. It doesn't really fall in line and I don't like the way that you change his personality. Now, you certainly can go back and take failed ideas and make them better. The best example I can use would be the Hawkeye show on Disney Plus because Kate Bishop as a comic book character is unbearable. Just as bad, well, maybe not just as bad, almost as bad as Falcon Cap in comic books. Almost as annoying, but she's Hawkeye, so she's less important, so it's easier to ignore the character. If you go watch the Hawkeye show on Disney Plus, which I think is fine. I don't think it's bad. I think it's actually maybe the best Disney Plus show that they did. You got Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton and Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop. They actually kind of fixed the character. She wasn't nearly as annoying or off-putting. Now, I do think putting Haley Steinfeld in the role certainly helps because she's kind of a likable actress or whatever. But they took off some of the really bad parts of the character and they cut it out and he said, you know what? In this source material, this stuff didn't work. This stuff turned people off. And now we can make a better version of that and see if we can salvage it. I don't know if they completely did. I don't think people are going to be like, man, I want Haley Steinfeld in the next Avengers movie as the replacement Hawkeye. I don't think anyone thinks that. But they made a better version of the character. The problem is we've already seen their version of Falcon Cap with Sam Mackie portraying the role, and it's just as bad, if not worse, than the comic books. And that's really the failing grace of all this going on here. But the character is too big to fail. You have to get Falcon Cap over. You have to get over Sam Wilson as Captain America because it's a political statement now. Marvel, as usual, has a lot riding on the success of the film, but there's another important aspect at play for Brave New World. The film centers on a black hero stepping into the costume of an iconic and well-known character, one that wears and carries the symbol of the American flag. Some believe that in terms of its potency and its relevancy, it has the potential to have a similar impact as Black Panther, the Best Picture nominated 2018 film, that was the first major superhero feature led by a black cast. And I do understand the tendency when you have something that transcends what you're doing, and certainly Black Panther transcended Marvel comic books and Marvel Studios and everything. It became a cultural event. It became something bigger than just a blockbuster popcorn flick. Certainly more so than a lot of other things in the MCU. It's an outlier. It's something that felt special. And Marvel Studios and Disney likely felt very good about themselves because they made something that was a cultural touchstone that affected people in a way that normally comic book movies don't. And I can understand them going, I want to feel that good feeling again. I would like to recreate the Black Panther feeling, and so we'll make Shang-Chi and call the Black Panther of Asian movies, and it doesn't work. And you're like, so we'll make Black Panther Wakanda Forever and try to replace Chadwick Boseman with his little sister that doesn't work, and it doesn't work there. And now we can recreate the feeling if we can make Sam Wilson Captain America and get people to believe in it. The problem is it's a bad version of the character. No one believes in this character. It's been a failure time and time again. Every time they try to do this, it basically just falls and withers and dies, and people are like, ugh. Can I just get Steve Rogers back? Not to mention the fact that the through line of the MCU never actually pointed towards Sam Wilson becoming Captain America. It pointed towards Bucky Barnes' ultimate redemption as the Winter Soldier, becoming Captain America as a fill-in before we got to Secret Wars and rebooted and got back to Steve Rogers as Captain America that everybody actually wants. And this isn't going to feel like that. Maybe some people will be moved by it. I'm sure that they will be. But for the most part, comic book fans don't like this. It's already been rejected, and it's not going to work. It is not your big answer to feeling the way you felt like you did when Black Panther came out and you saw all the stuff on social media and the way that everyone was reacting to it and everybody was really excited. Because you also don't have a Ryan Coogler on this movie that was the writer-director that was actually talented. And that's been another big-time problem within Marvel Studios. They don't have a lot of talented people. Another enormous problem is we've already seen the source material. At this year's CinemaCon, Marvel head Kevin Feige promised no aliens, no alien invasions, no time travel before showing off some footage of Captain America Brave New World. He also called it a relatively grounded action film. Brave New World spins out of Disney Plus's 2021's The Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, headlined by Mackie, which culminated with Sam Wilson taking the Captain America mantle. And the first episode's actually pretty good. It has really high production values. It felt like a little mini Marvel movie. They obviously blew their entire wad on that episode, and it just went down and down and down and got less cool and less cool and less cool until you've got Sam Wilson lecturing senators. You got to do better, Senator. We shouldn't be called terrorists. We shouldn't be called murderers. And just embarrassing himself on the screen. And once that moment happens, and leading up to it, it wasn't good. Like, man, this is not working out. I understand you want to explore Elijah Bradley, the Black Captain America that was forgotten and kind of forsaken back in the day and all that kind of stuff. And there's interesting stories to tell in there. But they needed a better version of Sam Wilson to be Captain America to actually salvage the potential of the role. And it didn't happen there. And I do think Falcon the Winter Soldier was probably viewed by enough people and talked about enough by enough people to know that this is actually really bad. It's nothing that people actually want to watch. And thus, it's not going to work. It's not the next Black Panther movie. Unfortunately for Disney and Marvel Studios, I know that's what they're hoping for. It's probably closer to the next Marvel's movie. I think this one will bomb bigger than a lot. I think Thunderbolts might do better than Captain America Brave New World. That's how much bad juju I think Captain America Brave New World has revolving around it. Not like Thunderbolts has been just like a smooth production as well. But I think this thing is going to blow up in their faces, and they're going to have to go back to the drawing board once again as they're scrambling to just get to Secret Wars so they can reboot everything and get the heroes people actually want back into the movies on the MCU. So that is your big update for Captain America Brave New World. Giancarlo Esposito, thumbs up. All the other stuff, thumbs down. It looks so bad. But I am here for the shit show. And it should be fun, and I will be talking about it with Aaron and others on Think Critical Patreon, obviously, as well as the YouTube. If you have not checked out Think Critical Patreon, we have lots of awesome discussions about comic books, the source material, certainly the movies and television, all that kind of stuff, geek culture in general. If you haven't checked that out, there's a link in the video description.